Hi, Steve Gamache here with the Chef Knives to Go quick look product video, and this time we're looking at the Masakage Kujira Gyuto 210mm knife. This line of knives, which is a bit of a departure from Masakage's normal offerings with the rest of their lines, has a core steel of Aogami Blue number 2, blue paper number 2 steel. The heat treat rating is 62 to 64 Rockwell approximately, and this has kind of a iron cladding that's very unique. You can read about it on the site, but it's composed of a variety of materials that are hammered together by hand for a very unique look to the knife. So you've got it is reactive, so you do have a reactive cladding over the top of that blue number 2. I'll show you more about that in a minute. The weight on this knife, it's not a very heavy knife. It's kind of medium weight, but it's 162 grams, 5.7 ounces, and these vary dimensionally quite a bit. I get the feeling by knife, because the one on the Chef Knives to Go site is quite a bit different than this size-wise, but this particular one is 220 millimeter long, about 8.7 inches, and the height on it's about 51 millimeter. So from here to here, it's about 51. Some of the ones, the other one on the site's quite a bit different than this, just to be aware of that. So if you want this particular model, you know what the dimensions are of it. The overall length, 14.3. The spine at the base, these knives are really not that thick. They were lighter and thinner than I thought they would be. So this is about 3 millimeters right above the heel, but then it just moves down off of that and moves down and really thins out quite nicely towards the tip for a distal taper. This has a very nice distal taper feel to it, especially when you get into the grind of the knife. The handle on this is just a real nice oval rosewood black packerwood ferrule handle, nice fit and finish on it. About 3-inch diameter or 3-inch circumference on it at the ferrule junction, which is where I measure, about 76 millimeters. And this particular knife, let's look at the profile on it. It's got a pretty flat section towards the back half of the knife, and not a huge amount of belly to it. So this is a fairly flat profiled knife. It does seem to work pretty well. I tested it very briefly, just to at least get a quick test drive to see what it did on a couple of onions and some potatoes, some sweet potatoes. And it goes through ingredients very, very well. I was more than pleasantly surprised at how well the tip went through food. I think this knife would be a pleasure to use for anyone who gets it. These are quite thin at the edge, and they've got really nice grinds to them. In the brief time I used this, just for the quick test drive, as I said, it went through ingredients very well, and it was a pleasure to use this knife. It is actually quite nimble in the hand. It's not heavy at all. I was surprised at how nimble and light it was. The balance point is just about right on the money on a pinch grip. And I don't know if you can see this, but this has kind of a copper tone to it. And it's a little hard to see the layers because they're quite faint, but this does have a Damascus type layering to it. I don't know if you can catch that. It's a little tricky to see. Maybe that's a little bit better. But it's got a kind of a small multi-layered Damascus touch to it. You have to look at it pretty close to get a feel for that. It's a very, very interesting blade. The grind does not start way up here. That's just an aesthetic effect. The grind pretty much starts right in here on the blade. I'm trying to get a feel for it here. But pretty much starts right in here. It's a little bit more convexed on the right side of the blade than the left. It's not a big difference, but I experienced no steering at all. But this is just a very, very interesting, intriguing knife. It's got a fair polish, as you can see. So anyway, it's an interesting knife. These will vary by size, so you might ask, if you're looking for something, you could ask Mark to find if he's got one in a particular size range you're interested in. This one balanced very nicely on the board. You do have a curved heel section on these. It's not finished quite as nicely as I expect some of their other knives are, from what I've experienced, but it didn't bother me on using it, but you could smooth that out a little bit. It's got that curved section, but it's not nearly as pronounced as on the other Masakage lines. So different blacksmith, a different style of smithing, and definitely a different style of making a knife. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful blade. It's light, nimble, cuts great. If you want something unique, this has a very unique flavor about it. So there you have the Masakage Kujira Gyuto 210mm knife.